Hey team, Victor here, and we're going to be talking about naming your show. So, what are we going to do? We're going to decide on a name. By now, you have an idea. You may have your niche, your avatar, but you've got an idea. And here's some things to think about. Is it a name that you can easily say in the show? So initially, I'm going to give you a little story about my Youngpreneurs podcast. Initially, I was going to call it the Young Investors Network. And I couldn't team it up, and you don't have to team it up to your guest if you're doing a guest or your audience. So, I may refer to them in the show as, hey, youngpreneurs out there, or, if for my guests at the end of it, I say, welcome to the Youngpreneurs family. I really like to. So I'm creating a group, a tribe around the name Youngpreneurs, whereas Young Investors Network really kind of, it didn't have a lot of affiliation. People couldn't relate to it. And so I had to change the name. But it's also something that I can really just roll off the tongue. Youngpreneurs throughout my episodes. And people can say, oh, do you listen to the Youngpreneurs? No. Do you listen to the Young Investors Network? So, I'm not sure what was going through my head at the time. But you want to basically have a brain fart all over a page to find out what name you want. And does it fit in with your brand and your why? So not does it fit in your brand, why? We're looking to see the why that we created earlier, the why are you podcasting, and what is your brand, what is your business? Does the name of your podcast answer the question as to why? And you'll see when we go over the logo section how important your name and your little catchphrase can be. When people are, say, looking on iTunes for your show, they wanted something that's going to explain to them what it is when it gets opened up. Okay, so something like Youngpreneurs, a lot of people can grasp from it. It's younger entrepreneurs. Whereas you can have a podcast that, if you've got a big following, if you've got a big list, if you've created a tribe already, then you feel free to stick with what you've got. If you're starting from the bottom like I was, with no list, no outreach, no anything, then you really do want to have something that people can quickly appeal to, that fits in within that very tight niche that you've got and the avatar that you're going to get. Okay, so as I said, can you label your listeners with a name, Youngpreneurs, or there's a lot of different ones. So Health Crusaders, I've heard on another one, and they try and give their tribe a name so people can relate, they can feel part of it. They go, hey, I'm a Health Crusader, hey, I'm a Youngpreneur. And it just builds that kind of raving fan that we're all looking for. The more raving fans we can get, the more they'll bring in other raving fans. You might want to check, is the domain available? So that can, if that's something that you're trying to drive them to. For me, I'll give you a bit of an insight with mine. Even if Youngpreneurs was available, people struggle spelling the word entrepreneur. Chuck in Youngpreneur and it was always going to be a tough sell. So I looked for, okay, what are the majority of my avatar and my niche looking for? They're looking for some passive income. They're looking for income, and they're looking for it now. So passiveincomeyoung.com was created from that, and that's where we kind of went on that line, whereas some people have it directly related to, but you're going to know what's going to work for you, and we've got the group to bounce ideas off as well. And will it identify the reason for your podcast? Okay, I talked about this if you don't have a list, but there's a podcast out there. It's called Small Business Big Marketing. So who do you think is going to be looking at it? It's going to be a small business who's trying to get their name and brand out there, and that may be you. I haven't listened to the podcast per se, but it really sums up the thing. And if you haven't got a name and that's known to people, so you look at somebody, say like Tim Ferriss, who's author of the 4-Hour Workweek. People know who Tim Ferriss is due to it. So he called his show The Tim Ferriss Show, and fair enough, because people are going to go, hey, Tim Ferriss, I know him, I like him, I trust him, I'm going to go and listen to his show. If I put the Victor Ahipene Show, when I had no list, nobody knowing who I was, and I interviewed young entrepreneurs on there, people wouldn't have clicked. They wouldn't have gone there. They would have gone, I don't know who this guy is. I don't trust him. I don't have any previous history with him, so I'm not going to go down that side. You can also look to create a catchphrase. So that'll help with your branding, and people at a glance when they're looking through different podcasts to get an understanding really, really quickly. Like really quickly. You're not going to have long to get their attention if they have to squint to see it, to read it. If it's got too many words, you're probably going to lose them. So your first one should be 3 to 5 words, or maybe 3 bullet points of like 1 or 2 words. Okay. And they may feature of your logo. So mine was from startups to success. The second is I recommend 1 to 2 sentences explaining what your podcast is. So the number one podcast there, sharing stories to break down barriers for young entrepreneurs. And that can be something that not necessarily goes into your logo, but it may go into your branding, into your website, into your introductions. So hi guys, welcome to the Youngpreneurs Podcast, where we go from startups to success. This is the number one podcast sharing stories to break down barriers for young entrepreneurs just like yourself. And that really helps. It doesn't have to be a long-winded explanation of your show, but it does give you a great entry level. So people who are for the first time listening can go, bang, that's exactly what I'm looking for, or that's not. And if it's not, cool, they're gone. Yeah, that's fine. And so just to round up on all of that, get a few ideas, just have a brain fart, a vomit onto a page, and get out as many names that you possibly can. Then put them out there to some people who are in your avatar, in your niche, in your target audience for feedback. Obviously, give them to our group because we love giving you feedback. And then I will see you in the next episode, which is going to be all about your logo and design.